What's up, y'all? This is Neena Perez, and this is Straight Talk, No Sugar Added. I'm so stoked to be here. Like it is, I don't know, 8:30, something like that for me, and for Alex. Thank God he's not like somewhere where it's midnight or anything. So I wanted to thank you guys for being here because this show is to always give you tools and tips to grow, challenge, and transform the way you think. And so today I found Alex Jarbrough. I hope I said that right. He is the founder and the CEO of Sargon Investments. He is a regular contributor of some of the top real estate investing podcasts in the world. He is also the host of his own YouTube channel, Alex Builds, where he teaches how to properly build and manage short-term rentals. And you know what's really cool, Alex? I think that this is something I think I might have only had maybe one other person who ever come on here and talk about this. And I love giving like my audience like this knowledge that they probably don't know about and are curious about. So let's start off with getting to know who Alex is. So the first question, Alex, is who are you? Who is Alex?
Yeah, so Alex Jarbo is, like you said, the founder and CEO of Sargon Investments, which is a short-term rental development and management firm. And I'm also the creator of the Build, Don't Buy short-term rental masterclass, which is a masterclass we put together about 3-4 months ago of
Nice.
just teaching people what I do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, is this something that you've always been into, or you got into it,
Yeah, so I've
yeah.
been in it for about 6 years now, just mainly
Okay.
short-term rental development. So if we go all the way back, I started in the Marine Corps and served 4.5 years in the Marine Corps. And my last year in the Marine Corps, I decided I didn't want to re-enlist. So I just started reading up on a lot of different investing, any type of books on business investing, just general books. And real estate had really caught my eye because I
Mm.
just enjoyed the control that you had over it. So I had originally joined a flipping mentorship while I was still in the Marine Corps. And the gentleman who was running the flipping mentorship, we were doing like a group coaching call. And he had just in passing had mentioned that all of his short term or all of his long term wealth was tied into short term rentals. And this was back in 2015, 16.
Mm.
And so that sort of perked my ears. That sort of caught my attention a little bit. So I got him on a one-on-one call, and I was like, I'm really open. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, but I was like, I'm really open after the military to move wherever in the country to work on short-term rentals. So he taught me how to choose the right short-term rental market. And then we had decided on like 2 or 3 markets and narrowed it down to where I currently live, which is Asheville, North Carolina. So the day I got out of the military, moved straight here, got my real estate license, and I just started looking for a deal for myself. And what I realized after like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months of looking was everything at that time was either way out of my price range or it was in my price range, but there was nothing unique about it. It was just, it
Mm.
wouldn't have done well on the short-term rental sites. So after, again, like that was like 4, 5, 6 months of looking. I did, and like just coming up empty-handed, getting multiple offer situations and just getting beaten down. And so I decided to build my very first real estate
Yeah.
investment, which was an 800 square foot A-frame that we own to this day. Cash flows like crazy. One turned into two really quickly, two turned into four, brought on some investor capital. And then today we're developing or purchasing over $10 million worth of short-term rentals. I'm hoping to triple that next year.
That's fantastic. So for those of us who are probably listening and don't really know what a short-term rental is, when you explain that a little bit to me.
Yeah, so I mean, there are a lot of different definitions when it comes to short-term rentals, vacation rentals, Airbnbs,
Mm-hmm.
VRBOs.
Mm-hmm.
Those some of the words that associate with that. To me, a short-term rental is any a rental that you rent for 30 days and under.
Okay.
But there is sort of like a sub niche that's coming up even and becoming more popular now, like midterm rentals that are like anywhere between 30 days to say 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
But I operate in the 30 days like minus like
Okay.
space. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So it's kind of, so are you on like listings like Airbnb and VRBO and stuff like that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we are. It's not where our listings live though. So like our it's part of our overall like marketing strategy
Yeah.
where I mean, you'd be dumb not to put them on Airbnb and VRBO when the
Mm-hmm.
property
Mm-hmm.
is first
Those
starting.
are big. Yeah.
Yeah, so that I mean, I just like when I what I coach people through is like you want to look at Airbnb and VRBO as just another marketing piece to your business. It is not where your business should live at. Just take,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, like as we're recording this, there's actually an update that's happening tonight with Airbnb. So it's like you're sort of privy and sort of you're stuck with any algorithm changes or anything that
Yeah.
happens. with
Yeah.
VRBO and Airbnb. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're phenomenal platforms, but if something changes with the algorithm and your property can't be seen, or say if your property gets delisted, you, another company essentially controls your entire real estate
Yeah. Yeah.
portfolio, and I've just never been a fan of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and they also control, like, like the reviews and what people say, and some of it, can, affect you good or bad, right? Good or bad. So, all right. So when you got into the short-term rental, the first thing that caught my ears, you said there was nothing unique about it, right? So nothing unique about the property you're looking at or whatever. So tell me a little bit about that. What do you mean by nothing unique about it? Because most people think that they could just take their home and just make it a short-term rental. So tell me what you meant.
Yeah, so I would say 5 years ago, 4 years ago, probably even before COVID and a little bit after the first lockdown, you probably could have gotten away with just getting a normal single family house, putting it on the short-term rental sites and it doing really well. What I'm seeing now, just from looking at the data and just seeing everything on social media, is a lot of those properties aren't doing as well as they used to. They're probably still cash flowing. But the way we've always developed properties is developing unique, I like to say Instagrammable properties, properties that
Yeah.
people would be proud to put on their social media. They're in a little bit more rural setting, which is completely fine, anywhere between 15 to 25 minutes from downtown. But you want something unique, and every area is going to be different. Here in the mountains, A-frames, log cabins, we're
Mm,
playing around with like adult tree houses, cottages,
yeah,
chalets tend to
that's
do really
cool.
well. But that's
Mhm.
what I mean when we talk about like unique properties. Is like an Instagrammable property where like essentially the guest turns into your marketing person because they're
Yeah.
putting it on their own social media.
That's
You
really,
know?
really smart, and I think you're right. In the beginning when, Airbnb first came out, I think that's how I thought about it too, right? Like, you just look at a house and you're like, "Okay, I'll just rent their house," but then it just feels like you're in somebody else's house, right?
Seriously, with all the,
Right.
like, closed, yeah,
Yeah.
closed doors and stuff, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because they lock their clothes in the closet and stuff like that. And I actually I agree with you, because even in our last trip, me and my husband's last trip, went to Orlando, and I was looking for an Airbnb, but it had to be something cool. It was like a
Yeah,
little
that's
cabin.
especially
It
in
was
that
like
area.
it was yeah, yeah. That's really that yeah, it was really fun. I'd never been there before. So I really understand that. And I love that you're playing around with the ideas of like adult tree houses and cabins and stuff, because that's actually something else I'm looking at. And the other thing I'm looking at container homes,
Yeah,
because those
so
are
something like
cool.
that. Like,
Yeah.
especially with Airbnb, they have all these, like, different categories now,
Mhm.
and, like, if you can fit one of your properties into those categories, like container homes, I mean, it's just going to rank better.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I know that you've been doing this for some time now, and you said you have partners and you're doing this whole thing. So, talk to me about somebody who is new to this and wants to, because I know you have a master class. So, tell me like some of the first like steps you think somebody should take if they wanted to kind of invest, or at least start playing around with the market.
Yeah, so, I mean, I started when, like, investing in short-term rentals, like, first started to become cool, and we were at, even back then, like, it was really a strong economy, and I'm a writer for Bigger Pockets. I write a lot of the short-term rental content, and, one of the biggest things that I've been talking about recently was just because what's happening in the markets right now shouldn't scare you. Okay, interest rates are
Mhm.
approaching
Mhm.
6, 7, 8%, 9%, on the commercial side. I always urge people to, like, underwrite the property. The interest rate is relative if your property is cash flowing. If your property
Right.
is cash flowing, that's the goal. If you can make the
Yeah.
property work in today's market, imagine where you're gonna be at in 2, 3, whenever the interest rates start falling again, because they
Yeah.
always go up, they always go down. So imagine what position you're gonna be at when you can refinance out of that interest rate. I say that first, just because, like, people might be a little bit scared right now in this
Yeah.
investing, like, economy, which I mean, it happens. I just say, like, no matter what the interest rate is, first underwrite the property.
Mhm.
But when you're first starting out, what I recommend doing is, if you wanna get, like, this is what my master class teaches, but if you wanna get into, like, right out of the gate into construction, that's what the course teaches. The number of one thing you wanna think about is, a lot of times, like, if you're listening to this and you live in like more of like a busier metro market, I don't really recommend doing this strategy in that market. What I recommend to you is, I always recommend starting in your backyard. And when I say in your backyard, a lot of real estate books will say that. With this, I'm saying like anywhere between 45 minutes to maybe an hour and a half from you.
Mhm.
And you want to think
It's
of a
good.
place, and this is the very first thing you want to think about. You want to think of a place where people are vacationing in your city, where they're taking an extended weekend vacation to. there are hundreds of these
That's
pocket markets
smart.
throughout
That's
the
smart.
entire country.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
like where I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, I mean, you drive up north, and I use the two examples on each side of the country. New York City, people drive to upstate New York every single weekend to get an
Yep.
Airbnb, say like in the Catskills. That's a couple hours away. But and then on the other side of the country, you have like San Diego. People will drive to like Big Bear Lake to stay up there for a weekend.
Yeah.
So that's step number one is identifying some of those pocket markets, those vacation markets that are within. I wouldn't go over an hour and a half, especially if it's your first property, because you're going to be going out there a lot.
Yeah.
So that's step number one. Step number two is either identifying what type of property you want to develop, or finding a property that has some sort of acreage attached to it. So it's like maybe you purchase the property, you can rent it out an Airbnb. Even if it breaks even, that's completely fine, like on the mortgage, until you can get the other one built. We did that a lot when we were dealing with the supply chain issues earlier this year.
Mhm.
We purchased properties that we felt like could cash flow really well, that had anywhere between like 2 to 10 acres attached to them, and now we're finally starting to develop on that acreage.
That's
So that's
great.
step number two, is either deciding if you want to develop or finding a house with some sort of acreage on it. And then the final step to that is, outside of the financing, is you want to be thinking about the entire guest experience. So it's not just what this cool property looks like when the guest is
Right.
staying there. You also got to be thinking about the drive to and from the property. So you don't want your guests to be driving like 30 minutes up a gravel road before they even get to your property.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're coming in at night. A lot of times they're new to the area. A lot of times they're like gonna lose cell phone reception or whatever. So you don't want them to be scared or annoyed by the time they even get to your property. So thinking about access to the property is huge.
Yeah. See, those are things that, I haven't invested in short term, but I've often thought about it. And my son is getting into real estate now. So we've also been playing with that idea. And so those are really good tips because I think those are tips that most of us who don't know the market don't think about. Right. And I'm sure you
Right.
didn't think about it either. That's probably how you know that. That's how you found
Yeah,
out. Right.
I had underwritten the deal like, okay, if it doesn't work out well, I can either rent it out like on a midterm basis, or I could just sell it, because it was just
Right.
I feel like anybody would have wanted to live in that. Like the square footage we develop at, anywhere between like 500 square foot to 1,500 square foot, there's always going to be a
Oh, that's good.
market.
So you have a range. Okay.
Yeah, there's always
Okay.
gonna be a market for, like,
Mm-hmm.
that size property if someone wants to
Mm-hmm.
live in it long term.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And how are you finding the smaller places that you have? Do you feel like they rent out better? Do they rent out more? Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, so I feel like they rent out better, especially
Mm,
if you're developing them, like, in a more unique aspect, and, again, if you're not doing new construction, you can always play around with the interior design as well and make it unique on the inside. Um, Sticking to that, like, 4 to 6 range, I feel like has done really well, because there isn't personally, I haven't seen a big jump between, like, 4 people sleeping and 8 people sleeping. I
mhm,
personally
mhm,
haven't seen
mhm.
it. That might be just specific to my market. But I like to stick to the 4 to 6 people range, again, anywhere between, like, 400 square foot to, like, 1,500 square foot.
That's
1,500
pretty
square foot
good.
house for 6 people is gonna be pretty comfortable for a
Yeah, it's gonna
vacation,
be comfortable.
bigger
And I
than a
think
hotel room.
yeah. Oh, for sure. I definitely look at Airbnbs now before I ever look at a hotel room, to be honest.
Yeah.
I just think it feels more like you're just really on a home away from home.
Yeah.
So I think that
And
what you're
there
doing is,
has been some,
yeah,
like, bad press with Airbnb and stuff, and they are working on that, again, the update as we're recording this, the update tonight is gonna be tackling some of those, like, bad social media posts about cleaning fees and other
yeah,
fees and stuff. They're working on that for sure, they're just
yeah.
working out the bugs right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's every business, right? You're gonna have your good, you're gonna have your bad. So, can I ask you something about the pandemic and all of that? Can I
Yeah,
ask you how that
absolutely.
affected you? How did you find that for you? Did you find your business go up? Did you find your business stayed even? How did you find that?
Yeah, so I mean, I mean, after the first lockdown, so we were locked down for like 2.5 months here.
Mm,
So we just put in like midterm rentals, like monthly rentals, which was fine to
mhm,
do.
mhm.
Here, short-term rentals were outlawed for like those first couple months, just like out that because it wasn't considered essential. So we just rented out to like traveling nurses for those first
Ah,
couple months.
smart, smart.
So we were comfortable. I mean, we still cash flowed, but like even if we broke even, we would have been happy compared to like some other businesses that were just getting crushed.
Yeah.
But after that, I mean, we saw a crazy resurgence. I mean, we were
Mhm.
raising our prices almost every 2 weeks, and we were booking out 95% occupancy plus. What's dangerous about those times was if people were getting into the short-term rental space during that time, that sort of became the normal of being booked 85 plus, 90% plus. when I first started, I relied very heavily on hotel books, like how to run a hospitality company. And
Mhm.
I mean, normally they operate anywhere between like 60 to 80%. So that's where we underwrite our properties at. But COVID for sure helped us because everyone was working from home. All of our properties have reliable internet connection. And it helped us. It's starting to slow down for sure now, but
Mhm.
that's because people are returning to work right now.
Mhm.
I don't really see the whole. I've seen some arguments made on occupancy is dropping because of just people having less disposable income, and that might be
Mhm.
true. But the way we invest in our properties in terms of being close to like metro cities,
That's
people
smart.
during a recession are
Mhm.
just they don't take the extended weekend vacation or
Right.
extended week vacation to Europe. They just stay stateside. So
Mhm.
I don't really see that affecting us. I just think that people are returning back to work and they can't work from home the way they did. So we did see a drop in our occupancy, but I mean, we're still cash. Our investors are still making money on a monthly basis, and we're still
Yeah.
cash flowing. Yeah.
Yeah, and no, I tend to agree with you too on that one. I think it's just that people are back at work. You're hitting the office more now. But I'll be honest with you, even I got used to traveling more in state. You know what I mean? I got traveling more in
I
the
mean,
East
our
Coast.
country is
Yeah,
beautiful, like from
yeah.
coast to coast. It's insane.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful. And if we took the time to actually explore, we realize how beautiful it really is. And
Yeah.
I know
National
I've
parks,
been
national
driving.
forests. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And beautiful beaches. If you go down like to Florida or some parts of Texas or something like that, I mean,
Absolutely.
it's just gorgeous. Yeah,
Yep.
and North Carolina, South Carolina, all these places are just gorgeous. And I feel like now that more people have moved out too into different states,
Right.
it's nice because you have family and friends now in all these different states. A lot of people from Connecticut moved to like Florida, North Carolina,
Yeah.
South Carolina, Georgia. So I'm like, oh, okay, I got a friend here, I got a friend here, I got a friend here. But I love the short-term rental idea. And I want to know, like, for people who are listening and are like, okay, well, I want to get into a short-term rental. Now, you just mentioned the word investment. So investors, excuse me, investors. Now, do you feel like the best way to go is to have investors, or is it because you kept growing? Was your
Yeah,
first,
it
yeah,
was when it depends where you are when you're first starting.
yeah.
I could get those first like 3, 4 deals without investors.
Mhm.
Um, I just reached a my wife and I reached a point where we were just tapped out
Yeah,
financially in terms of we couldn't guarantee any more loans in our names by ourselves.
right.
With how fast we wanted to grow, we could have
Mhm.
easily done the thing of get 2 properties a year and then just roll that over every couple of
Mhm.
years. That's
Mhm.
completely fine as well. But there were people who were in my life, friends that were coming to me that had some money set aside. So those were the first couple investors that trusted me and I trusted them or trust them because we're in business together. And that's how that just started. It was
Okay.
I I had the appetite to do more, and that's where the investor capital from. Right now, I'm not really actively in raising capital because we're just trying to deploy the capital that we raised earlier this year.
Yeah.
And we've also teamed up with a couple funds in the like out of Michigan and New Orleans to be exact that they raise all the capital, and then I'm essentially the deal finder and I put together the deal and manage it.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
tell me about a challenge. Like, what is the biggest challenge you might have found that you had to navigate and learn, while you were getting into this?
Yeah, when I first started, it was just understanding that I mean construction takes a little while, especially
Yeah.
with and things. The thing about construction, this is why I created the course, was when you're starting, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
This was a
Right.
completely different world to me.
Mm-hmm.
I relied very heavily on like university textbooks, like real estate development textbooks that like are taught at university. I would just purchase the textbooks. And that's sort of how I dip my toes in the water. But it's like just with anything else, it's like the best way to learn is just to
Do
get
it.
into it.
Yeah.
So one of the yeah, that was the biggest challenge was just a huge learning curve. And recently, things are getting better with like labor and materials and stuff. But just finishing up some of the projects that were caught up in COVID, like
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
were like pre-COVID budgets that we put on hold for a couple of years until things recovered a little bit that we're finally developing. And that's been the biggest challenge, is sort of just balancing numbers just to finish those projects
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Currently, like with getting like as long as I'm underwriting the properties at today's interest rates and today's costs, I'm completely comfortable as long as they're cash flowing again. But like
Right.
what was very difficult was dealing with budgets that were done prior to COVID. We got the loan like right when COVID happened. And then
Yeah.
like we just put them on the sideline until recently, which I probably had to come out like maybe 150 grand out of pocket to finish up those projects.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because, the price of lumber and everything went up,
Yeah.
oh my
Like
gosh,
quadruple,
exponentially.
5x.
Yeah, it was
Yeah. Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. My husband is in construction. He builds and refinishes homes and stuff like that, and he was like, "I can't, I yeah, these
Oh,
prices are
it was
crazy."
I literally like to build a small deck was like 5 grand. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what he said. That's what his customers were saying. They were like,
Yeah.
"Why
Yeah.
are you overcharging us?" He's like, "I'm not. I'm
You're like,
literally just charging you
here's the
material."
breakdown. Here,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's how I felt. I was
Yeah,
asking. I felt like 30 grand for decks for how big those were was craziness.
right.
But it's like, I'm thinking about like two specific properties, but like I literally asked for like breakdowns, like cost, labor, and it was
Yeah.
they were right. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
his customers did the same. I totally get that. So, let me ask you about your very first property. Like, how long do you feel like, or do you remember, that it took you to start seeing cash flow for that property?
Yeah, I mean, it was in the first 2 months,
Oh,
for
wow.
sure. Yeah,
So
yeah,
you picked
no,
a good spot. You picked a good spot.
yeah, we not yeah, I'm not gonna say lucky, but we definitely did get lucky with the land, that we purchased. It was beautiful, 4 acres on the side of a mountain, so it's got beautiful
Oh,
mountain, like,
nice.
winter
Yeah.
views. It's wooded in the summer, but beautiful. Honestly, this time of the year is the prettiest time of the year, out there in the winter. But yeah, the first property cash flowed relatively quickly because the
Good.
mortgage was only turnkey to purchase that property and build it prior to COVID. It was 250 grand with furnishing it. I probably put about 40 grand out of my own money into that project, just like money that I'd saved up and borrowed from other people. And that property last year grossed 83,000 in revenue, 82,000, and then it netted 46,000.
That's
So my
great.
ROI on that property has been over 100% a year, which is crazy
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
just say that. If you wanna discount those numbers by like 25, 40%, 25 to 30%, I mean, those are still crazy numbers.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
good.
the I think the mortgage payment on that specific property is like 12, this is after a cash out refinance too. It's about $1,200 a month, and it cash flows anywhere between like, or it grosses anywhere between 5 to 8,000 a month.
That's
So
great.
yeah,
Yeah.
it cash flowed relatively quickly.
That's good. And that's probably what became addicting, right, Alex? You were like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Snooki now.
Oh, yeah.
We
I
got
mean,
something."
we did the math. We're like, I mean, we only need 3 properties to essentially retire, so that's what it when I say
Yeah.
retire, I'll always be doing what I do because I enjoy it, but
Right.
in terms
Because
of
you enjoy it.
stepping
Yeah.
away from what we were working on full time, like working, and working on this, yeah, it was definitely addicting for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'm just trying to like think of all of that and like how you would get into the property, and then how you would know the experience of the person. Did you actually put yourself through it? Like, did you and your wife actually go to the property and stay at the property and see what
Oh,
was
yeah, yeah,
missing and all of
yeah,
that?
that's
Yeah,
I had my builder's family stay at the property.
that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Give
so
you feedback,
that's
right?
yeah, absolutely, and, like,
Yeah,
constructive criticism, like, no,
right,
like, don't be nice to me, like, tell me what's wrong with it, you're my friend, you built it.
right.
So yeah, for sure. We stayed in it. We were the first guests to stay in it. We had some friends come into town that were like, "Hey, go." It was just perfect timing. We're like, "Just go over there and stay in it. Tell me what's wrong with it." And as we've grown, I mean, we've done that with almost every single one of our properties
Oh,
that
good.
we
That's
yeah, yeah,
good.
we've stayed in every single one of them. I bring a notebook with me. I'll videotape everything if I don't want to write everything down. And then when I get back to my office after we're done with the stay, like I'll write out everything. It's one of those things where like when you're setting it up, you're not realizing it, but, like, some things
Mhm.
might feel awkward in the property that,
Yeah.
like, "Oh, the kitchen needs this because I just thought of it, but I couldn't find it," or blah, 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 blah. Like, that's where, like that's what differentiates, I would say, like, the top 50% of people and then, like, the top 10% of people is
Mhm,
those
mhm.
little things because you have, like, 20, 30 little things add up really quickly.
They do. And I think one of the best things to do is to have like maybe this is just my way of doing things, but like for instance, I stayed at, like I said to you, at that Airbnb really cute cottage out in Orlando. And there was a couple things I saw that I was like, but what I did was I sent them a private message. I don't
Yeah,
believe in
absolutely,
like
and
bashing
we ask for
people
that
with
in
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
we ask for that in the guest
Yeah.
review, like, well, after they check out, we if they actually did have a bad stay, we like to get in front of it with a message that we send out
Yeah.
automatically. But it's essentially that. It's like, if you would change anything about the property, let us know. And I
Yeah.
mean, I would say most of the things after we stayed in the property that we didn't find out, most of the properties that, or most of the things that are in all of our properties now have come from guest recommendations.
That's
Because if
awesome.
one guest finds it awkward in a specific property, it
Mhm.
probably applies to all the rest of the properties.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
actually a really good tip too, Alex, because that's what jogged me to do that privately with him because he sent me a private message and I was able to say, hey, A and B, that all the think that's the only thing you really need to like kind of look at. But I love the property and I gave him a 5-star review because it was a nice place. And I
Yeah.
think that people like you who are working really hard to try to have this experience, right? And that people like me who want to have a good experience. If we can treat each other like human beings and kind of like feedback off of each other and help each other through that journey. I mean, it's that's a win-win, right? So,
Absolutely.
tell me about a little bit about how who's listening right now can get into your masterclass, into your program, like connect with you, all of that, because I think, I don't think I know that what you're doing is super cool, and I know a lot of people that would be very interested in that. So, tell us
Yeah,
about that.
absolutely. And like I said originally, like, you only need 2 or 3 of these properties to to net 6 figures. I would say 3
Right,
properties to net 6 figures.
right. That's
So I
awesome.
mean, it's not that much if you're thinking like, okay, I want to quit my job in a year or two, say 2 years. I mean, you can, we did that. Well, like we
Mm-hmm.
did that
Mm-hmm.
relatively easily, with just 3 properties. But for anyone who's interested in the course, the master class, I essentially sat down and put together the course that I wish I had when I first started. Because if I
Mm-hmm.
would have had this course when I first started, I probably would have saved 100, $200,000 at this point with just mistakes and stuff. So that's at my personal website, which is alexjarbo.com. I'm sure it's going to be in the show notes somewhere.
Yeah.
But you guys can just click the masterclass button and it'll take you to the course and where to purchase it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so the course is going to take them through that journey you told us about with like building a property and
Yeah,
learning the
everything.
okay.
It's 120 videos.
Oh wow,
There's
it's a
a
lot.
65-page workbook that we put together.
Wow.
There's some group coaching in there like once a month, and checklists, templates, like messaging templates,
Oh, that's
checklists for
great.
building, everything. Even how to decide what is unique in your market is in that
Right.
course. Literally from step 1 all the way down to even raising capital if you want to go that route.
Wow, that's fantastic. Wow, I'm gonna check that out myself.
Yeah,
I just
absolutely.
told you I wanted to dabble in it because I told my husband, I said, you know what? I want to like buy a few acres, like 5, 6 acres, and
Oh
I
my,
literally want to build just like container homes because he's a
do it.
he's a contractor. I'm like,
Yeah,
just build a whole bunch
honestly,
of little container
that
homes.
course would be perfect too, and, between us,
Yeah,
like, I mean, you have
yeah.
direct access to me, so yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. No, that's really, really great. And I didn't realize how robust that was. That's amazing.
Oh,
That's
it
really
took
cool.
6 months to put together. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, oh, I'm
it
sure.
was
I'm
like
sure.
15, 20 hours of just raw, or 15, 20 hours of edited videos. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
so cool. That's good. That's really, really value. So if people want to know more about like your business and stuff like that as well, or do you take any investors still or no, or how are you
I'm
working
open
that
to
out?
having the conversations.
Yeah.
What I would probably do is just defer them over to the fund that I'm working with, because that's
Yeah.
how to directly invest in the deals that I'm working on.
Oh, cool.
They have,
Okay.
in my opinion, they have better they have the systems in place for investor relations of how to
Mhm.
keep up with
Mhm.
investors. So yeah, I am actively looking for investors. I just push them over to my fund that I work
That's
with.
good.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right. Awesome. Yay, Alex.
yeah.
You dropped some knowledge up in here
Oh,
today. Thank
I
you.
appreciate you having me on. No, it's fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
was fun and I learned a lot and I love learning and I know that my audience does too. So I'm super stoked that you were here and I can't wait to like share your word and everything you're doing out there because people are looking right now, Alex, to switch what they're doing, like people are tired of the office thing and they're, at least that's what I'm working with. I work with a lot of like C-suite people and women and stuff like that who are looking to transition
They're
their
like, I'm
life.
done.
And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that's where people are because I can't seem to hire anybody at my at my place.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
like, where is
funny.
everybody?
You're
Oh,
like,
they're
"I
working with
teach you about it,
Alex.
but I
That's
can't
laugh.
find anyone." Yeah, that's funny.
Alex is stealing my people. No, I'm
Yeah,
only
that's funny.
kidding. Alex, thank you so much for being on Straight Talk. I'm really grateful. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thanks
Appreciate
for having
you.
me on. No, I had fun.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Guys, thank you so much. I'm going to make sure that Alex's information is listed below. Go ahead and check out that course because that sounds like such a big, robust course. On top of that, I love that he's also adding that once a month group coaching thing because that's where you really get to experience what you're learning in the course and really expanding your knowledge to really move forward. I know a lot of you have, text and emailed even the very last time, which was a while ago, when I had somebody talking about different types of investing. They were talking about buying properties next to high-end schools so that like student rentals and stuff. And that was really
Absolutely.
cool. And that got a lot of hits. So I'm sure people are interested, Alex. So thank you for being on the show, guys. Thank you for listening and watching. You guys are the best. Love you so much. Neena Perez, Straight Talk, no sugar added. Until next
Bye,
time.
everyone.